Before we step into this episode, I want to offer a moment of reflection. As Roxy and I sat in the studio to record on January 7th, the fires in Los Angeles had only just begun their fierce, merciless crawl. We chatted unaware of the unfolding tragedy, our words untouched by the weight of what was to come. It wasn't until we were finished recording that I began to grasp the devastation. I had planned to publish this episode that Friday, but instead I spent the next 2 days in tears, watching as the city I love was devoured by flame. Streets and skylines that shaped my reality and soul, places woven into the very fabric of my self-concept and identity, were reduced to embers before my eyes. News came that my loved ones in Los Angeles and Altadena were losing their homes as the fire swallowed not just structures, but the memories and histories within them. I wrestled with whether to release this episode now, knowing that even as I speak, the fires, though contained, still rage. But in the end, what Roxy and I share here, laughter, inspiration, and wisdom, feels too important to delay. If these words reach even one heart that needs them, then they have found their purpose. Please keep Los Angeles in your heart right now, and if you can help out in any way, please don't hesitate to let your talents, skills, or donations help those in need. Thank you. Welcome to The Uncanny Lens, where we are exploring self-concept reflections in pop culture and media. I'm your host, Jinx Kelly. Today, I'm really happy to say that I am joined by the incredible Roxy from Roxy Talks. Roxy is a mindset and manifestation coach, a singer, and a musician. Hi, Roxy. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi. Hello. Welcome. I'm welcome. Oh my gosh. I'm so used to being the host. I'm like, welcome to your show.
Thank you for welcoming too. I love that. Okay, well, first of all, I just want to address that it's been a while since we've had our last episode published, and I want to thank everybody for their patience during this time. I really needed to take some time to focus on healing. And then I needed to take some time to focus on healing from the healing. Like Kieran Culkin was not kidding in his Golden Globe speech when he said that, like, it's work when you're working on yourself. So yeah, I needed some time to just reset physically, mentally, and spiritually so that I could come back and put my full energy into this podcast and everything that I'm creating with Ventralverse Media. That being said, I also want to say that, as you may have noticed, my co-host Minx isn't here. And that's because Minx is working on an expansive, world-changing project that's taking her full focus and attention right now. I couldn't be happier for her, and I fully support her. Honestly, I hope to play a part in what she's creating right now. It is so wonderful, and I can't wait to have her back on the show so that we can talk about what she's doing. She will be back on whenever her schedule allows. And in the meantime, we'll have some amazing guests, and we'll also be hosting solo episodes. Me and my parts will also be hosting solo episodes. And we may even have some guest co-hosts along the way. And I don't know, maybe Roxy is going to end up being a guest co-host today. I was planning on interviewing her, but we'll see what happens.
It feels very co-hosty. But I just, it's like I have been doing this for so long. Even before I had my podcast, I had a radio show. So I think that's this, when we got on together, it felt very co-hosty. So that's why I was like, hey, I'm here. I got you.
I love that too. And I know we've talked a lot about a lot of the ways that our lives have like paralleled each other actually in the past. And I used to be on a radio show, and then I worked for a radio reading service for the blind. I also was an associate producer for Teletoons. Do you remember Teletoons from like back in the day?
Okay, it sounds familiar. The name is like ringing something, but I couldn't.
It was like our local MTV on like PBS. There have been a lot of parallels in our journeys. And so I just want to say, like, full disclosure to everybody listening. I have actually been a client of Roxy's, and she has been my mindset coach for a couple of years.
Woo.
Yeah, woo, indeed.
Yeah.
I feel so lucky that I got to work with you when you were doing coaching in that way. And then I got to do some one-on-ones with you. It was really helpful at a time in my life when I didn't know where else to turn. So I have so much gratitude to you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And it's always, it's been fun because we even have a deeper history than that, which is so funny, our lives. I don't know how far back we're going to take this.
Let's go all the way back.
We were briefly you were looking at coming into the sorority I was in, right? That's what it was.
Okay, so here I actually did.
Or we were in it
for a minute together.
Sorry, this was 20 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a little bit of mapping out of some of the parallels in our journey. And so we both grew up in under-resourced areas. You were in LA at first and then came to Colorado, and I was just in Colorado the whole time. We attended the same university where we were briefly in the same sorority, and then we've both lived in Los Angeles as adults.
Yeah, at the same time.
I know, isn't it? It's so wild that
we saw each other at that thing, that Gala Darlings thing.
At the Vortex Fest. Yes, that's the first time I think we actually met in person, although I think our paths have probably crossed multiple times.
I remember you from Sigma. I do remember you.
So wild. Yeah, that's so wild. And I'm sure we probably hung out at the same bars or went to see the same bands play.
Oh, I'm so sure. I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would be shocked if that hasn't happened. But in 2021 is when I first encountered your work. And it wasn't just your teachings and what you were talking about. I was obviously interested in the law of attraction and the law of assumption. But it was the way that you were speaking. And I don't know if I said this to you, and if it sounds offensive, I'll actually take this out.
Now I'm very intrigued.
I may have even said this to you once
leave
before.
Leave it in there.
That the first time I saw you, I was like, "Who is this white girl talking like she is from Aurora?" And then I was like, "Wait a minute, this girl is not white." And then I listened to more of your videos, and I started listening to your Mindset Mondays and I was like, not only is she not white, she is actually fucking from Aurora.
I actually was in Aurora.
And I was just I realized that was one of the reasons that I was drawn to what you were saying, because it wasn't just what you were saying, it was how you were saying it. And it felt familiar to me. And so I was drawn to you. And oh my God, the gratitude that I have to you for just being yourself and sharing who you really were in the world at that time and who you continue to evolve into was a gift, because I don't know that I would have been drawn to this in the way that I was otherwise. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. And not to take us off subject, but I feel I'm do I have an Aurora stank on me? Do I just exude Aurora? What the fuck?
No, that's so funny. Well, if anybody would have a stank, it would be me coming from Commerce City. What? That's where it was.
Only people that are from the Denver metro area will find this funny. Anybody that's outside of Denver is what the fuck are they talking about? But listen, if you're from Denver, then this conversation is, it. You know what we're talking about. But yeah, I also grew up in Lawndale, California, which is kind of it's nestled between downtown and the beach. And so it's kind of just this little tiny area of LA. And, it was, like you said, what did you call it?
Under-resourced.
Under-resourced. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But it's interesting because in LA, and it's the same, even if you know this, you've been here, but Beverly Hills, it's right next door to those places. You can cross one street and you're in resource. You're in full resource. They have every fucking resource.
They're so resourced. They paint their fire hydrants silver and gold. It's one of the most bizarre things. They literally do. It's so funny to me.
Oh my God.
Oh, it just cracks me up. Yeah, and it's really interesting to see that kind of shift and to see it just physically, right, in our geography and in the places that we've grown up. And so I think that might be a really interesting place to kind of start. Before you started doing your mindset work, how would you have described your self-concept as an artist?
So it's interesting because that's literally what brought me to The Secret, for example, because I was on this is my famed story of finding the secret. Like it's like this whole faded story of like why I'm here, like even right in this moment. It was my birthday, 2011. And this woman who was kind of a mentor to me in the music industry took me out to lunch for my birthday. And we were just talking about music and stuff. And, you know, my self-concept was always like, I've always known I was going to be, and I'm going to use the word famous because like I grew up in the 90s and, I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. Like that's what it was. It was either you were famous or you weren't. You know what I mean? There was no in between. There was no internet celebrity. There was no self-made. There was no influencer. There was none of that shit. It was either people knew who the fuck you were or they didn't. And I always knew from birth that I was going to be someone that people knew. It's in my awareness of who I am as a person. Like I've always had a lot of self-awareness, even as a child. I was very, very aware of things I should not have been aware of as even a toddler. And I even remember, like, I know that I came online at like 3 years old because that's kind of when my memory started. So I remember myself as a person, as an identity. And I'm like the same person. I was like this at 3. Like I had these kind of thoughts, and I obviously didn't have the lexicon and like the knowledge and life experience to articulate things in the same way. But I very much understood who I was. I understood the world. I understood a lot of adult things that I should not have even been privy to in any way. And I always knew what my place was in the world. So like my self-concept was interesting because I knew that I would be successful. I knew I was going to be quote unquote famous, but I didn't talk like it. And I had a really horrible, like, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna, but this, and this, and I'm gonna but And so this woman that I was at lunch with was like, girl, you need to read The Secret. And this was in my like peak atheism when I'm like, oh no, some Jesus book? I don't think so. I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, a Jesus book? And she's like, no, not at all. That's like not what it is. And she kind of like piqued my interest enough to where I left that lunch. I was very broke. She paid for my lunch. I had $11 freaking dollars to my name. And I was driving home and I drove past the bookstore and they had a used copy of The Secret in the window of the bookstore. So I went in and it was like $9.99. And so with tax, it was like I had $11, and it was just like I spent my last $11 on that. And it's interesting too that it was 11 because it was 2011, and I ended up meeting somebody on 11/11/11 just a few days later because my birthday is November 8th. So it's all in this 11 cycle and circle, and it was just so divine. And I opened that book, and what I read was just like a reawakening of something I've always known. My dad is psychic, and he's very spiritual, and he was, I was very sensitive as a child as well. But like I said, I was atheist. I shut down a lot of things because I started questioning things at a very early age, and like religion didn't make sense to me. And my mom's side of the family was Catholic. And so I would go to church with my mom's side of the family, and my dad was like, don't force any religion on her. So there was like this dissonance of where like I had this dose of reality of like quote unquote reality of like not taking in the church stuff as gospel, literal gospel. And so when I would go to church, I was just like, I was like 5 years old, and I'd be sitting there looking at people and be like, you guys believe this shit? Like, you really believe? And I was questioning that at such a young age. And so it kind of opened this door to like skepticism and like, if it wasn't tangible, hard in my face, if I couldn't see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, touch it, it wasn't real. And so I wouldn't believe in anything beyond that. And so when I read The Secret, all of these things they talk about, if you've experienced this, blah, 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 then, this is this, and explaining things. And I was like, oh my God, this is okay. Like, I've had so many instances in my life that it was like boom, 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 all these things. And I'm like, okay, I knew immediately that it was real. And so for me, I went from like super, super duper skeptic to 100% believer in an instant, because the book validated all these experiences that I couldn't explain in my life before that had happened. And so when I realized it was manifestation, I was like, oh, whoa, just like blew my fucking mind apart. So here we are now. And then now it led me on this journey of like, what the fuck is it? How do I do it? Then it's, okay, I have to share it with people. And then the people in my life didn't give an F. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
I've been cussing this whole time.
Fuck yes.
If not, it's going to be a lot of bleeps.
No, I don't.
It's going to be a lot of fucking bleeps in this one.
Fuck it up.
Oh my God. Yeah. So people in my life didn't want to hear it. They thought I was like just crazy and absolutely nuts and batshit. And so I just started putting it on the internet because I'm like, fine, I'll fucking just put it to people that are Googling it. I know they want to know. And that's how my YouTube channel, those videos were born and eventually led to Roxy Talks like a year and a half later.
What do you think were your main challenges that you were facing in your...
Girl, every day is a fucking challenge. Being a human, being alive.
When you went to lunch with your mentor, what would have been, like you mentioned you were broke. Would you have considered that one of your main challenges? Like what else, like what was going on for you back then that was impacting your creative journey?
Okay. So part of the reason, it's like, I've been a self-inflicted starving artist kind of a thing. And part of it's like generational because I feel like I watched my dad do the same thing and, just pursue his music and only that kind of a thing. And so I think there was I know for sure, I'm not going to say I think. There's definitely there was a part of me that was like, I have to starve for my art. I have to struggle. Like to be a real artist, then you need to just do your art. It's like that kind of a thing. And so you're like you're choosing to forego traditional means of employment and things like that because you're like, I have to do, if it's not my art, it's nothing kind of a vibe. And so, that was where I was financially and mentally. I think the biggest, like creatively, I was doing my fucking thing. To be honest, I think I was more creative back then before I had my business because now it's like to be real frank, obviously, we'll be honest. Having a business and like having to be the main support and like, when you have a job, there's a certain level of like control that you relinquish and you just kind of know that you have that money. It's always coming in on a certain date and you don't really have to worry about it. As long as you show up, you know that you're going to get that money. When it comes to like having a business, for me, it definitely turned into like this is how I survive. This is how I support my family. And there is nothing else. There's no other backup plan. There's no other option. So I had to put the business in front of everything. And I think I overdid that. So back then I think I was much more creative back then because I was in bands, I was writing music, I was putting stuff on the internet. I've always been somebody that puts their work out there and puts their stuff out there just because that's who I am. I've come to the planet knowing that's who I am. So like, what else would I be doing? And so I think the biggest hindrance to my creativity back then was just that I was extremely negative and I didn't understand what negativity was. I grew up with like a lot of anger in the house and like anger and fear is like how things were dealt with. And so I was a very like angry, happy person. It's kind of weird. Like it's kind of those situations where like nothing's quite wrong, but you're still angry. And you don't understand the source of it. You don't know why. And so you just kind of like take it out on everything around you. And that's kind of how I was. And I just was, this side of me that is like sensitive and kind and funny and open and warm has always been there. But, for a long time, it was overshadowed by that negative cloud and anger and just like this like feeling of like, I landed on the word earlier today and it's like the first time I've heard it. It was in my meditation. I'm trying to remember what word it was, but something about, deprivation. It's the feeling, it actually was in my book I was reading, the feeling of being deprived of something. And, and that just comes from like, as a child, having to move away from my entire family and like feeling like I lost everything at like 9 years old, the life that I love so much, and moving to Colorado and it just like ripped me away from my life. And I just have had so much anger, and like now I deal with it. Obviously, that's why I created 360. And meditating every single day is very crucial, but it's still there. It's not like it's not. And that's why I'm so adamant about my practice and me maintaining my self-care and my spiritual shit, whatever, because if I don't, then that like angry person she's still there. That's who I am. It's who I was raised to be. It's like that stuff still happened to me. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it's a choice every single day to like not invoke that energy.
I relate to that very, very much. And it's so interesting to be in a place to be able to kind of like be able to reflect back and see that in myself as well, because I really wouldn't have probably described myself as negative before I started doing this mindset work. I also felt pretty happy. I was definitely angry. I was angry about a lot of stuff. A lot of the things that my anger revolved around was sort of around the state of the world and climate justice and climate chaos and things like that. So growing up where I did, that was heavily influencing that. I also grew up in angry homes.
Yeah.
I even grew up in violent homes. And so that was sort of a default programming in my body and in my parents' body and in my grandparents' body.
Yeah.
And so, it's
It's generational.
and it just keeps getting passed on. And it feels like a really big task to be the one who sort of breaks that cycle and interrupts those patterns. And yet it's also really...
But it doesn't. Sorry,
my
coach is coming out. My coach is coming out. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It feels so fucking good to not carry that shit.
It does, but that is also big.
It feels so better.
I think that it can be big, like how a surprise party can be big, right? Like it's like, oh my God, I'm so happy for the surprise party, but also, holy shit, that just kind of fucked up my nervous system for a second. Like it's sort of like, you have that excitement, but it's also like a lot for your
I've never had a surprise
body.
party. I've always wanted one. Sorry. I've always wanted one. No one's been able to do it. I'm always planning my own shit.
Girl, maybe that means you need to stop planning your own shit for a minute and let somebody else surprise you.
Too bad I have my headphones on because my husband is not hearing this right now.
Well, he can listen to this episode later.
I'll have to debrief him later.
I feel like a lot of what I just heard you describe is sort of a misalignment between like maybe who you are and who you were like programmed to be. Did you feel a disconnect between the artist that you wanted to be and the life that you were living then?
I wouldn't say there was a disconnect at all. I think I've always been tapped into the artist that I am and meant and supposed to be. I think it was more so like who the person behind the artist. You know what I mean? It was like, and like, I do think that like, I don't know, I go back and forth with it because there's part of me that's like, if I had stayed in LA, I would have went straight to Hollywood. I might have ended up in Nickelodeon. I might have ended up in some P. Diddy shit. I might have ended up in so many of those places. Most likely would have happened to me is I would have gotten on a label and been too feisty, wouldn't have played ball and have gotten shelved and blacklisted. Like that's probably what most likely would have happened. But like, when I was watching and I don't know how deep we're getting, but when I was watching the R. Kelly documentary, I was like, if that had been the right mall at the right time, I would have been one of those fucking girls. If somebody had come up to me in the mall when I was 14 years old and was like, hey, R. Kelly is like looking for people to be on his rec, I would have been, that would have been me. And again, if I had been in LA, I would have gone straight to Hollywood. As a teen, as a young person, I would have went straight there. So sometimes I think like, going to Colorado, obviously it shaped me into who I am now. And I don't think that I would have been on the same journey that I am if I had stayed here because my life would have just been so different. And I think I would have, like, obviously, like I said, I'm still the same person, but the trajectory that I went on being like taken away from my life, it's obviously just something that it would have never even come close to that if I hadn't left here. So now that I'm able to, also control the art that I put out, because, if I had gotten quote unquote famous, if I had gotten a record deal when I was in my 20s and stuff, the music that I was making back then, it's vapid, it's pointless, it doesn't do anything or mean anything, it doesn't add anything to the world. And now I'm in a place where I understand, how important music is. I understand how important the mindset is. And I would rather the music that I put out be, of value or like meaning that it does something good for somebody, doesn't take away from them. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that it went the way it did because I don't see, when I look at like the music industry and what it is and like where the trajectory that I was putting myself onto, if I had the success that I wanted at the time, I would be very miserable right now.
I love that you're able to reflect on that and come to that conclusion. I think that it's easy for a lot of us to have regret sometimes or to say things. I mean, this is something that we actually worked on a lot in my coaching with you was me feeling like I wasn't doing things fast enough or right enough, or that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, or whatever that kind of looked like in sort of navigating space and time in my journey, and like what I wanted to be creating in my life.
Listen, you're always in the right fucking place. And that's the thing that I think you're missing. Not that you're missing it, but that's what, in those moments, that's what you're missing is like realizing like this is where I am, and that is significant. That means
it's
something.
What I say to myself now to get myself through those moments. I mean, I go so far as to say that I do hear your voice in my head sometimes when it's just like, what do I want this to be? What do I want this to be? Do I want it to continue to be the same thing, or do I want to shift something in this moment? And I just remind myself that I'm where I'm supposed to be, and that this moment is the moment that I have the power in.
Always.
So when you started reading The Secret, when did you realize that included your music?
Pretty much immediately, because it was the music that tipped. It was like the conversation was about the music. That was like, girl, you need to go read The Secret and get your fucking shit right, because this is not acceptable. Like, basically, the message was like, you can know that you're going to quote unquote be famous or whatever. I'm using that term loosely. Like deep down within, all you want, but if your language is constantly saying, but it's not, but it's not, but I'm not, you're not going to fucking get there. And like, that's, I feel like the music and that all goes hand in hand with each other, because, I didn't decide or realize that I could or should be doing this, manifestation coaching or mindset coaching until years into reading that. You know what I mean? I still was in the energy of being a musician until it actually was when I stopped doing music. They had to shut music off inside of me. My guides, like I've told that story about, my album release, and I was on stage singing and I just felt so empty. I was like, this is like not what I thought it was going to feel like. This is like really lame. I don't like this. And I got off that stage and I just kind of was like, I'm not going to fucking do music anymore. I quit music that night. And I went through a bit of an identity crisis of like, who the fuck am I now? Because I had nothing outside of Roxy the singer. I never once cultivated anything outside of that. I have I got a degree in behavioral science, which is ironic because obviously I use it now. But I just did that because my family wanted me to have a degree, not because obviously that's very privileged to say. But it was always about music for me. And so when I put my first album out after putting so much time and effort into it, as my first album was supposed to be this huge monumental moment. And I was like, ugh, no, thank you. I don't like this. It just didn't have anything that I thought it was going to hold. And it was just so empty. And so I was kind of lost for a little bit. I ended up finding my psychic during that time, the one that I still talk to this day. And she basically predicted Roxy Talks. And so I was on this vibe of like, I really want to motivate people, because when I lost music, I felt very depressed. I lost my identity. It was the first time I had ever felt like I didn't know what I was going to do in the world. I didn't know who I was anymore. Not that I didn't know who Roxy was, but I didn't know who I was to the world anymore. I felt aimless and purposeless, and I had never felt that in my entire life. And so that's when I found motivational coaching on YouTube. And when I started watching it, it made me feel so good. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to help people like that. And then it was, well, who the fuck are you to do that? You don't even have your shit together, bitch. You don't even know what you're doing. You just quit. Blah, 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 all that thing. That whole thing started. So then I went on this journey of, mindset of like helping myself. I talked to the psychic. She saw me coaching people. And so the first thing I was like, okay, I'm going to be a music coach. And since I don't want to do music myself, let me go help the other artists. I have like 15 years of experience. Might as well just do something with it. And then that led me down the rabbit hole of, okay, how do I get coaching clients? And then that's when everything changed. Just that Google search. How do you get coaching clients? Changed my whole fucking life. And now it sent me down the internet marketing rabbit hole for 2 years. I studied. In the meantime, I started my YouTube channel. And then when I emerged, I fucking started my business, and here we are.
Yes, here we are. So as we explore your story, I want to share something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and I want to get your take on it too, Roxy. Recently, I heard somebody say that believing in yourself should be taken more literally than we tend to take it. I know that a lot of times when I say that I'm believing in myself, I'm saying that I believe in my ideas or my potential or my purpose. And what I think is really being asked of us instead in this sort of context is believing in the cues that our body is giving us about the particular thing. So in any given moment, if we check in with our bodies, there is resistance to believe what our body is telling us, whether it's quit that job, end that relationship, take that trip, set that boundary. It's a signal that maybe we don't fully trust ourselves yet if we're not acting on that, in my opinion. And as I reflected on this thought a little bit more, I thought that it could really be the cause for some of the inaction and misalignment that I've experienced in my life that I previously didn't understand. And so I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that. When you check in with yourself as an artist and musician, what does believing in yourself feel like in your body, and has that shifted over time for you?
This is what's coming up right now, because this is something, I feel like this is something that you could unpack for a long time and pull all kinds of different things out of. But the first thing that's coming out is that, okay, people always ask me how do you show up? How are you so consistent? How do you keep going? And this is tying into I think what's coming up for me is what belief is there's no other option. I'm not going to do anything else. And so it's to me, I would say that it is the knowing and decision and trusting that your path is that your path, what you really, 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 really want. And if you just allow yourself to kind of go down it, you're going to go there, because that's how paths work. I think people forget that if you just put one foot in front of the other on a path, you will see, I say all the time, you will see everything that's on that path. That's just how paths work. So if you are staying on the path of the version of you that you want to be, there's no other option than to find quote unquote success in that area. Obviously depending on how you define that. Because if I wake up every day and I do Roxy Talks and I work on my music and I work on my programs and I work on whatever the fuck, and then I put it out there, and then tomorrow I do the same thing, then that's what I am. That's who I am. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, of just again, taking the steps on the path that you want to be on. But I think that it's are you willing to put that above all else? Are you willing to bet on yourself to the highest degree that nothing else supersedes it?
Yeah. Oh my God. I think that's such a powerful way of sort of defining how it would be to live in alignment with believing in yourself, because that might mean quitting the job, ending that relationship, taking that trip, or setting that boundary. And a lot of times that 100%. Can be really scary. That's more comfortable to stay. It's feels better to stay in your comfort zone rather than to push up against your edges. But pushing up against our edges is the way that we experience growth and expansion. And that's, as far as I know, the only way that we can.
It is the only way.
Those things.
Otherwise, the boundaries remain. Yeah. The boundaries remain, because they show it to me it's weird, because I see it's almost like this a Wyoming farm. And so there's just all this sprawling green, just tons and tons of stuff. And then you have your house, your farm, your whatever, it's all fenced in, your property line. If you just continuously cycle and stay inside of that, you just stay inside of that. It's not until you literally push up against it, push, move the boundary back, then you cover more territory. There's no other way. Otherwise, unless you leave, go all the way outside of it, there's no other way to experience anything outside of it.
Yeah, you'll literally just start creating a rut if you're just going in the same. And then, let's talk a little bit about The Mountain and your new song and music video that has been in the works for nearly 5 years. So first of all, let's explore the inspiration and spiritual download that you experienced for The Mountain. How did this start?
I was in the shower and the song came to me as a full song. And this is the second time this has happened to me where I got a full song. The first one was my song called Boys. If you want to go look it up on iTunes, Roxy Lee Hart, called Boys. That song came to me also as a full download, but The Mountain came to me as a full download. And it's interesting too, because when Boys came to me, it was like, this is going to be the first song that people hear of you as a solo artist. And Boys also took several years. And I was just like, no, I'm going to release way more stuff between then. Nope. It was the first song. Mountain, same thing. They were like, this is going to be the first song that you release for like this new positive music project. And so I also like I knew that was there, and I knew that it happened with Boys. So it just was kind of on the shelf, but I knew it would be the single, but I also just, I thought there would be more. And I didn't think it would take so long. So it's just funny the way that, when I got the song, I knew it was during COVID, and it was during 2020, June of 2020, and it dropped into my head, full song. I started working on it immediately with a couple of my friends and like sending them the stems, and my friend Zach wrote the guitar part, and it's like been in the works ever since. And part of the reason it took so long, number one, is because, like I said earlier, I kept putting work in front of music, business in front of music. So that's really why I haven't released more music in these last few years. And I'm still working on it. We're getting there. And then when I was filming the video, so many weird synchronicities and things happen where like this person canceled, this thing changed, this thing moved, this thing shifted, to where it was just, it got filmed when it got filmed. The alignment was aligning like in crazy, crazy ways. And when it finally got released, and it's crazy too, even like I said, this thing has been in the works for so long. There's been a lot of downloads. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. There's been so much thought about it because it's been nearly half a decade that it's been in the works. And then right towards the end, like I got a download in my meditation that, and this is, I'm not even going to open the political conversation. This is just what I was told, that they told me like around the time that I was supposed to release it. I was going to release it for my birthday, which was November 8th. Election day time. Not this year. It wasn't. Trump was elected the first time on my birthday. Anyway, side note. They said Trump is going to be reelected and your song is going to help people get through that, whatever. So I was kind of surprised because I don't really dabble in the political stuff. You know what I mean? And I was surprised to get that. I kept it to myself. I only told like a couple people. And then that was right before the thing happened where somebody tried to, not do something very bad to him, which I obviously don't agree with. Doesn't matter what side you're on. And I thought after that, I was like, whoa, maybe he won't. Maybe that was just a random little personal thing that got popped in, because it seemed like after that happened, the trajectory changed. It seemed like Kamala was going to win, just the way it was like going. And then when he did end up getting elected, I was like, oh shit, that was a real download, a real prediction. Anyways, my point is, it came out when it came out, very, very, very divinely. And I don't know where the song is going to go or what's going to happen because of it. I know that it is supposed to help people with really deep things going on. And I don't want to like bring things up, but deep things that they're dealing with. And as like a guide and signpost for people. So it's the people's song. It's for the world. And it's out now, and I'm glad that it's there to serve whatever purpose in people's lives that it's going to, because I know that that's what it is for.
So I'm curious, I noticed around the time that you released this, that you did start talking a little bit more about politics on your channel. Did that influence that?
Mm-hmm. The reason that happened was because my ancestors were screaming at me. Like it's like, I mean, I've been related to Harriet Tubman my whole life. It's not like it's, my family is very proud of it. We're very connected to it. It's not something that is ever like, it's not something I hide or shy away from in my personal life. I just never wanted to like use her in any way to like further myself. Nor did I ever want, like, if, somebody was like, oh, Roxy's a fucking bitch, or they have something negative to say, I would never want that to be put onto her legacy. You know what I mean? So I just kept it to myself. And, my family encouraged me to talk about it. Like they're down with it. My aunts were like, yeah. But it was just something that I just never felt like, when is the right time to just like say something like that? It's so random and like not connected to anything. it was just that day, like right before the election, the Saturday I was in meditation, and it was like one of those things where I'm like throwing up. Like I was like, I hear you. I have to make the post right now. And I was like, I told my husband, I was like, I have to make a post about Harriet right now. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, they're telling me that I have to say it. And like even my business coach has known for years. And I like, it was never something that I intended to speak about or use, but I also knew that it would come out when it did, because it would. I know that I'm guided and on the same mission as her. I have the DNA, the genetic, and I also have the spiritual connection and guidance to her. And I'm on that same kind of frequency of liberating people and bringing peace to people in a different way. It's like a personal liberation, personal peace, but also ultimately to help the planet at large. So I never intended to speak about politics in any way, and sometimes that's pissed people off. I've had people in my DMs being like, "Why aren't you speaking about the war? Why aren't you speaking about this? Why aren't you speaking about that?" And I'm like, because like I'm literally not here to be a source of news for the things that are shitty on the planet. And I don't mean that in a callous way. I mean that like I have to shine the light. I'm here to shine the light, and I'm here to offer that light of what's possible to the entire world while all of these things are going on. And so if I start, pointing my stuff toward the direction of the darkness, then I just take on darkness and I share that. And I can't be that person. And so, there are times when I will speak about it, and I speak about the mindset of where we're going and how to achieve what we're doing and the forward momentum of it. But I'm not going to be somebody that speaks about, the horrible shit that's happening in the world. There's so much access to that kind of content that I literally can't. It's not my purpose. It's the opposite of my purpose to discuss those things. And so, in those times when I do say something, it's because I really want to like shift how people are feeling and thinking about it. And then I say my piece and I kind of go back to and I retreat again, because again, it isn't, I think some people like you, when you talked to her in the beginning about what you're so on fire for things, like you are the type of person that is supposed to be a front end, like activist. That's your it's in you. It's been in, and I don't mean that you're supposed to be an activist, but I mean like you have that in you, that like I'm frontline change. And it's like we all have our different purposes. You are kind of like that frontline activism. I'm not that. I hold the light. I am a lighthouse. I am lighthouse, and I have to stay on that fucking island or on that peninsula and shine the light and stay there and hold that frequency no matter what, whether there's rough seas, calm seas, whether there's 1,000 ships in the harbor, whether there's one, whether I'm guiding someone in, whether I'm creating light on the landscape, whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't matter. I am there to hold that frequency and stay there. And if the lighthouse moves, the ships can't come home. You know what I'm saying?
That's so powerful and beautiful. And I feel like it's really important to acknowledge that is a role in all of this too. Like just because it's not in an activist role or on the front lines or whatever else that may look like, I still think it's so important, because people like me need some place to come back to, just like you're saying, where it does feel good, where it's warm, where it feels like home, where we can shine light on the darkness that we kind of have to visit, like the shadows that we kind of have to visit in order to bring our light to these different situations.
To everywhere in the world. Right.
I've been at odds for the last 3.5 years, I guess. I stepped away from a lot of my social justice work and climate justice work because I felt like it was just creating depression in my life. I was so focused on all these things that were breaking my heart that it was affecting my mental health. And so when I decided to start working on my mindset, I was like, I have to leave all of this behind. This like can't be who I am. And then as things have sort of happened in my life and in the world over the last few years, I've gone back and forth. Like, is this who I am or not? And I couldn't find where I felt like it fit until really just within the last few weeks. And I started making some shifts and adjustments by just really being very honest about what I believe and not trying to continue to convince myself that I should believe something else. And so I want to touch on this just a little bit before we get back to the mountain. It's one of the reasons that I was attracted to your work, right? Like we laughed a little bit and joked about like the stench of Aurora or Commerce City. Like I didn't grow up around like what is typically thought of as white people. And so I had a different perspective on a lot of things. And I was exposed to a lot of different cultures when I was younger. I don't want to get into a lot of the details of that because I'm still like figuring a lot of that out in my own identity. But I didn't relate to a lot of the people who were already popular or famous in these spaces because it wasn't necessarily my lived experience. And so one of the reasons that I was attracted to you was because of the way that you were speaking. And then when and that is because it was in alignment with how, like I said, my teachers used to talk. What was important about that was that I didn't have to try to relate to something that wasn't like settling in my body. When I started listening to you and I started watching your videos and listening to your affirmations and your meditations, it reflected my lived experience in a way that felt more authentic in my actual like body and was and awesome. Allowed me to receive the message in a way that I wouldn't have been able to before because I am really not that much into like capitalism. I obviously don't support the patriarchy or colonialism. And so I was at odds with all this stuff. Like I show up to spiritual centers that are like mostly white and I feel very, very uncomfortable. I feel very uncomfortable because there are a lot of voices not being represented in a spiritual community, and that feels problematic at best, dangerous at worst. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. I don't know. I just want to be really honest about how you just being you is so important in all of this.
You know, that's how it is for everybody, though. You know, it's like, and that's like what I'm doing with my work right now. And that's why I've shifted my work is because, you know, it's like, I'm still the same person. I'm still talking about the same things, but like my role, besides obviously holding that light, is to make sure that everybody, as many humans as possible, are doing their role. So part of my role is to do my role so well that it inspires you to do your role well. Does that make sense? It's like I have always been a watch me do my thing so that you can do your thing. That is even in the beginning when I like from MySpace, like my first website was like watch me sing. It's like watch me do the thing because you are going to do your thing and I'm going to inspire you to do your thing. And that is like that is my real true thing is like, I'm here to usher in 10,000 years of peace. That's something that's been told to me multiple times. But the reason I'm here is like, I'm dual purposed. One is to live out as much me as possible to soak up the juice of like everything that I'm here to do. But also in that is to shine as that person and that example and usher in and guide other people into doing their thing too. Because, you know, can you imagine the planet if 7.8 billion people or however many it is at this point was all on the frequency of yas me, I love my life, I'm tapped into the higher power, God or universe, whatever it is, I'm doing the thing that I love the most, I'm meditating every day, I'm loving myself, which helps you love your neighbor. I'm not focused on what other people are doing or trying to tear them down because all of my energy is 100% centered on doing what I'm here to do and making yourself the happiest and most fulfilled person. That would, I mean, there's, you know, where that's Atlantis and the new Renaissance, like we're bringing everything back to like a world that like the way that Earth could be. And so that's like why I'm here is that's the Earth that I see. That's the Earth that I know that is my role to you know, bring in. And so I'm really just on this mission of like, how can I get you to see how fucking amazing and incredible you are at what you do and then make it the thing that you do all day, every day so that you're 100% tapped into that power all day, every day. And then the whole world is. Everyone's doing the reason they came to Earth. Like the puzzle, if everybody is a perfect puzzle piece, then the puzzle is perfectly put together and we really have that utopia and that amazing like potential for what Earth could be. So I can't focus on the puzzle pieces that aren't fitting. Because that just, it's literally the opposite of what I'm here to do, which is like refine everybody into their perfect puzzle piece so that we can fit into this amazing unit and make the fabric of our reality just like a beautiful tapestry.
I definitely have felt like with what has been going on just in the last month that I've witnessed in current events, I'm like, wow, this feels a lot like history repeating itself. And what I don't like about this is a lot of people are like, this is how they've dealt with this in the past. Because I'm sort of like, but that just keeps repeating the cycle. It's not stopping the cycle, and it's not creating like a new path for us to go on. And so how do we do things different this time? And that's a question that I find myself sitting with a lot right now.
Well, I'll tell you how. Because everybody has to do their thing. You do it differently by not following the fucking status quo, by not following the carrot that they're dangling. You know what I mean? It's like, if everybody started thinking for themselves, acting for this, and I do think this is on the way. I honestly think like there is a revolution coming because people are fed up with all the bullshit. And, you know, it's like it's hard to keep the wool over people's eyes these days because news travels extremely fast. People are tapped into the whole world at once. And, you know, nobody's really sugarcoating anything anymore. And people are not looking for that anymore. And, you know, I think that we came from a time, which I do have a lot of nostalgia for the 90s. I think that was the best fucking era. I mean, I was only available for like a little bit of the 80s and then that, but I thought it was so great. Like before people started having too much access to too many things, too much information, all of the time that is spent swiping and judging other people and like not living your own life, being tapped. Like, so I think social media ruined the world, honestly. But that's another story. You know, I think that like I come from a time where I know like what humanity can be like with that connection and that connectivity. And like there was some aspects where it did feel like the wool was over our eyes, but it was nice kind of at that time to not know all of the fucking darkness and bullshit that's actually going on. But now that we do, you know, like this new generation is not going to fucking stand for that. And that's good for them. Like I like seeing people stand up for things. I like seeing people stand, you know, for what they want and what they believe in. And, you know, I think there's been a lot of corruption for way too fucking long. And it is the time now. I think that the change is happening, but it takes every single person. I mean, and this is not old news. Martin Luther King said it. Like the change, you have to be the fucking change. You want to see change in the world, you need to be it. You need to do something different. You need to march to the beat of Jinx's drum, period.
You know, we talked about how this song and this video and the timing of it is meant to be supportive for people with what's going on right now. And what's something that I'm really interested in discussing with you is some of the imagery in the video. Some of the things that I was particularly like drawn to in the video was the funeral scenes, the horse, the interplay of color, which is really just black, white, and pink. I'm really curious why those are the only colors used, and how these visuals reflect the song's message. So I know when you released the video, you were talking about, I think you did a contest or something. Like you were talking about you had an Easter egg. There was an Easter egg in the video. Oh, yeah. I was like, what was going on? There was a contest. I don't know where I got contest from. So I'm curious about those things and what you were infusing with the imagery that's in this video.
You know what's really funny about it is that like I did not plan any of the imagery. It was all channeled. So actually, this is honest. I'm going to be real honest. I have not even thought about that till right now because. So I'll tell you where the images came from. So there's the white room scene, and that came from because this was originally conceived of in COVID. And so the video for oh God, what is the song? True by Spandau Ballet. They're in this big wide like white sick room studio, and they're all like 15 feet apart. And I was like, oh shit, I could literally social distance and get this video made. I did not expect it to take 5 years. Like I was like planning on social distancing, like when the first imagery of it came through. So it was supposed to be me and other people that some of them were on the song, some of them were not on the song ultimately, but we were going to be in the room together and be separated. And so the room was booked the plan was like built around the video for that. And then like I said, all these like random synchronicities kept happening, and it ended up just being me in the studio that day. And so all of those scenes in the white room was supposed to be band scenes, and it ended up just being me. The color is because I'm a brand whore. And I just like, I was like, they gotta know it's a Roxy video. And my dad was sick, and my dad hates pink. And he was like, fucking pink. I'm like, yep, just for you. And I really wanted something classy. I love black and white. I think it's so beautiful, so classy, and just so sleek and just beautiful and artistic. And so it was kind of I wanted a little bit of color. I wanted those scenes, but it was also like the awakening, you know what I mean? And so I think when I look back at all the pieces, and like, not that I'm saying that there was no plan, I can't say there was zero plan, but the things were 100% channel, the visuals. And it always felt to me of like the pre-mountain and post-mountain is kind of like what the difference is between the scenes are, is like, this is before I've kind of like taken on this identity. And then we have like this burst of color, this burst of like possibility. And then, so after I'd already filmed the white scenes, the black and white scenes, then I was in meditation and I saw myself on a horse. And I was like, oh, there's supposed to be a horse scene. And I was terrified. I don't like, that was the first time I've ever been on a horse. You're not an equestrian? I am not an equestrian girl. I'm a My Little Pony girl, and the pony was a big fucking stallion. But so that was terrifying. So that was conquering things too. And we just had a very short window with that horse, and it like, we captured what we captured. It became what it became. And then I thought the video was done. And then I saw a funeral in meditation another day, and I was like, oh, that's the final scene. So they literally gave me all of the visuals. The only things like I channeled, like I did the fashion and everything like that. I wanted there to be a really cool like fashion story between all of it. And the visuals were literally given to me. And so that's why I say, like, with this song, like, that's how I know that it's for something else and beyond me, because it didn't come from me. I just facilitated it. You know what I mean? It was like it came as its own, like somebody sent me the package of the mountain, and then I just kind of like put all the pieces together.
Well, I agree that the glamour, glitter, fashion, and fame was absolutely on point. I loved it. The last piece of imagery that I really wanted to get your thoughts on is there are these scenes where it's like you're singing to another version of yourself. So you're like in profile.
The backup singers?
Is that, yeah, I guess you're like in profile. And so I was like, what's going on here? Is this what does that duality represent? Because first of all, I noticed like the color things, and I was like, ooh, this feels very like Wizard of Oz, sort of Dorothy waking up in Oz, sort of. And then there's a line in the song where I believe this is what you say, with the dark of my soul calling for me. Is that what the like profile dual backup singer like represents, or what does that so represent?
It's funny too, because I've read so many interviews with artists, and I've listened to so many, and people, they're like, does this mean this? What is the symbolism? And they're always like, I wasn't even, not even close. Like, not that like you're not close, but meaning like, I didn't even like think that far into it. And so I'm just having one of those moments where it's kind of surreal and kind of funny. I'm like, I can't even say anything cool and artistic because, that was literally just, I was supposed to be my own backup singers. That's what that was. And so there was more scene. So it's kind of funny because the day of the shoot, I spent so I had 8 hours in that white sick room, that studio. I spent half of my time there, and I'm not exaggerating, half of my time there filming myself as two different backup singers. So double, I had to do it twice. And I ended up cutting like 95% of it. And I was like, well, I got to have some of this backup singer shit in there. And I had it. And it was funny because it was almost like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where I was like, I have my one front view person like that's singing in the front. And then I have my backup singers. And then I like squished myself, like made them small. And they were like behind, like over my shoulder kind of. And it just kind of looked funny. My husband was like, I don't know, babe, it looks kind of hokey. So I ended up taking those out. And then so there was just a few scenes where I left them. And that's where it is. There's like nothing that exciting. But then as far as like that line, so I talked about that. I don't know how much trigger warning. I'll just say this now, trigger warning coming. That song, it had so many different things happening. When I was recording the vocals, this was in November of 2022, there was a lot going on. My dog died. My grandma was dying. One of my friends committed suicide. And then another one of my friends almost OD'd. And so it was like, all of this shit. Like there was just so much pain and suffering happening around me and people that I loved. And the friend that unalived himself, he was also a musician. Actually, everybody that I just referenced was a musician besides my dog. But he was a musician, and his energy came to me in the studio. And I added that line. I added 2 lines, and it was that one. I never meant to cross the mighty river alone. Never meant to take on the world with the dark of my soul calling me, or whatever the fuck I said. Sorry.
With the dark of my soul calling for me. Yeah.
Or something like that. With the dark of my soul calling for me. Yeah. And so it was like, that was like, he kind of like helped me that. And there's another line that he wrote was what 100% was his voice. I even sang it in like an octave lower, but he said, I will always promise to try again. And that was him straight up. So I put that in there. It's kind of like below. It's kind of quiet because it was just more of a personal thing. But then that other line came through that was kind of like I felt like we wrote it together. And just like the idea of like that line is kind of just like, I didn't realize it was going to be so fucking hard, you know? And like, it is hard. It's really hard. And I'm doing the best that I fucking can, you know? And I think that anybody that's ever dealt with depression or, you know, thoughts of exiting, sometimes it's just like, sometimes it's overwhelming. It's just like, that's all you can think about. It's all that's there. And sometimes it's just like, it would just like, let's just go. Let's just do this because I can't even anymore. And so it's just kind of like acknowledging like, yeah, it is fucking hard. And like, did I know this when I signed up for being on Earth? Because I don't feel like I knew that. Did I read the fine print? But just like acknowledging that, you know, you still go and you still do it and you still can.
I feel like maybe this person, this version, what do I want to say? This, whatever the incarnation of us looks like when we're not in the human body, right? That was just like, fuck yeah, it'll be so cool to be down there during this time because like all this fucking cool shit's gonna be happening and you're gonna have all these opportunities for growth and you can fucking topple these shitty
I'm gonna
things.
grow so
like,
fucking hard.
Oh my God. And I know you've talked about like if we're here to feel these feelings, like let's just really lean into it. Let's just really feel these feelings. Then like, oh my God, if I'm gonna be sad and depressed, like I am so sad and depressed. I really, really feel it. And like, honestly, that's the key to like getting past these things, honestly, is to just sit
acknowledging
in it. And,
yeah.
Let it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge and let it be what it is. Oh.
But not dwell.
And I think that's where I personally used to get caught in the past but I didn't realize I was dwelling. I just thought that's the way things were. That was just the way things were, the way that the world was. Yeah. I do want to ask you this because you have a lot of things that are changing in your business right now. You just ended your Mindset Monday, which was your weekly YouTube gathering of the community that happened every Monday that you've been doing for the last 5 years. So this was your first Monday not doing that.
Yeah.
How has that been? How are you feeling? What's going on in your world?
I feel so good. Honestly, like it's weird because like, you know, the reasons that I didn't end Mindset Monday years ago are still the same reasons to today. It's like, I obviously love my people and I love you guys and like seeing each other every week. And even like my mom was like, oh, I thought about you all day yesterday. How was it not having your show? And I'm like, oh my God, my mom, like just sad. Like, you know, my dad was on there. Like my family, people, you know, would just come on and people of over the years of 5 years would just pop on and knew that was there. So like, that was really hard to let go of. And even now I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about it, but also it was such an anchor and I felt so trapped by it. And I haven't been able to feel free in my creativity at all. And it's funny because now I'm like, all I can think about now is like, I want to go back to YouTube now that I don't have to have, and it's like my husband's kind of explaining it to me. He's like, it's like almost like all of the creative bandwidth that you like actually have in your cup was all funneled into Mindset Monday. And so like, and then you're on live stream, you're on there for so long, you're pouring the whole time. And then when you're well, I don't know if you ever go live, but when you're live, it's like you have so many things to think about, and you are on 100% the whole time, and it's very, very, very draining. You know what I mean? So there were so many different things that Mindset Monday like did not add to my life anymore. And so it was a really big decision and really hard. But now that it's like, and I also ended my podcast. I actually didn't even end it. I just fucking ghosted it. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I just, sometimes you have to let yourself move. And I also noticed this yesterday in my meditation of like, and I mentioned this a little bit, like I was so much more creative when I was younger and in my 20s and stuff before I started my business, because if I felt the fire of something, I just went and did it. I created it, I put it out, and I moved on. It's like now that I have my business, I've been staying stuck in the same space for years and years, not letting myself move on, because now it brings me money. Now it's not just a hobby, a fun thing. I'm not just making videos because I want to make a video. I'm making videos because I have to keep my lights on. You know what I mean? Like it turned into that kind of a thing. And so it lost all the fun and the passion for it. And I allowed myself to stay stuck and not move with the fire like I always have. I always just went from thing to thing to thing to thing. That's why I was always a very prolific creator in my early years. And not that I'm not anymore, but I feel like I have let myself stay doing the same thing, even though the fire has been gone out of it for years and years because of like a sense of duty and responsibility. But like that isn't the tea. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily the best thing. And so now that I've I took everything off my calendar. The only thing I'm doing is I'm creating a reality show at the end of the year. It's like a business retreat, bougie business retreat meets reality show competition. But that's the only thing I have on my calendar. I have plans to do a side podcast and just like create a small amount of episodes. It's like a season. Other than that, I have complete freedom in my schedule, which I've like never in my life had. You know what I mean? Like with the having a business, having the financial support from my business, but also nothing on my calendar at the same time. Like I've never had that kind of a freedom. And so now that I'm here, it's so interesting that all I want to do is go back to where I was. And I'm noticing like a huge gap in the YouTube market as well. So I feel like how interesting of the timing that the second I'm like, all right, I'm done. It's like, now I'm ready to go back in a new way and kind of, but not chain myself to anything again. So I'm just not wanting to chain myself to anything. I just want to stay creative. But not having Mindset Monday yesterday was really liberating. And I just was like, I could go, I went to Costco. You know what I mean? Like I just like did a thing like a human being. And it was really nice, honestly. Even though I love my people.
We know you love us and we love you too. And I think that a lot of us were so happy that you're doing what's best for you and following your passion and that fire, just like what you were saying, you were able to do that more when you were younger. I totally understand that too. When I was younger, and it wasn't even that long ago, honestly, I was doing burlesque. I was doing pinup modeling. I was acting. I was producing. Anywhere I could dip my toes into the entertainment industry, I was trying to do it. I worked at Warner Brothers for 10 years.
Wow.
And it was the best time of my life, probably, because I was able to work on so many different things at once and not be tethered just to one thing. And the last few years, what I've really been tethered to has been this illness that I've been healing. And I've been really inspired by you deciding to end Mindset Monday. And when you were talking about how you really just don't want anything on your calendar, and I started to experiment with that myself. I decided to stop going to as many wellness appointments and things like that I didn't feel were really serving me anymore, that I kind of just kept going to because I felt afraid that if I didn't go, something would get worse. And I realized, I don't really want to be living and doing this from a place of fear anyway. And I didn't even realize that I had been, right? I just thought I was being healthy and taking care of my health. And I started taking these things off my calendar, and I didn't have someplace to be. And I noticed that my nervous system started to calm down tremendously. Wow. I started sleeping better because I would have so much. I'm sure you may have experienced this when you worked for other people, when you would like get a new job and like the day before your new job, you kind of can't sleep. Anyway, this what used to be was true for me. I couldn't sleep because I would be like, what's it going to like? My mind would be racing. You know what I mean? My nervous system would be highly activated and wanting to make a good impression. What am I going to wear? I don't want to sleep through my alarm. I don't want to be late. Like all of these things because I didn't want to be like seen as like less than. And when I started taking these things off of my calendar, I noticed that I was experiencing sort of the same thing when I stopped working for other people, like this relaxation, this regulation that was coming through into me because I was having a hard time sleeping at night because I had to get up the next day in the morning for like a wellness appointment. I try not to call them doctor's appointments because of how my body was sort of interpreting that. So yeah. And so I really had to cull out any of the appointments that were not serving me, that I felt like I was doing sort of out of obligation. And boy, I have just noticed that I feel so different in my body. There's so much more space for me to deal with other things that I want to be experiencing or clearing out of my system and my life, really. And so thank you for ending Mindset Monday. And once again, just being true and authentic to yourself. So like typically this is the part of the show where I talk about offers that I may have, and I'm not going to do that. This is something you may have noticed too, is that any of the offerings that we had in the past aren't available anymore. And that's because I realized that I wasn't being authentic to myself. And so moving forward, I am going to be making some changes and reshaping things to better reflect who I am and the kind of impact that
girl, this is what
create.
I'm doing in my bit. Listen, you think you've had good coaching with me? This is now my, like, not now my genius, but I now am realizing that this is my true genius. Is this conversation, is the products, the services, the offer flow, the sale. Like this is where I fucking shine, girl, because that's what I told you. That's my purpose, is to make sure everyone's doing their purpose. So that's what I receive. That's what I channel when I talk to people and they talk about their business. I just see it all. It just like lays out in front of me exactly how to structure it. So I'm like that conversation gets me real excited. I love like helping people do that, because that's what I'm here to do. So
do you have any new offers or anything that's going on that you want to share for what's coming up for you now that you're shifting your focus?
Yeah. And actually, I'm working on, so what I have right now, like today, is the channeled brand audit. So basically I'm like taking an Instagram page or a sales page or something and just like making sure, and most people are not, like getting it to be directly targeted to the ideal client only, and making sure that your offer, your messaging, your brand, or whatever it is that I'm auditing is actually speaking to the ideal client and telling them like what they want to hear and what they want to see. Because what I've noticed is a lot of times, number one, people are not actually talking to their dream client. That's the most important thing. So I'm creating a new masterclass where we're going to be learning how to speak to just that person. And so people aren't speaking to the right person. They're also not selling something that person wants, that is at the intersection of like their number one burning desire and then the number one thing that you want to do, that you love to do. And like that's where your business really is going to shine, is at that intersection of like, what is your ideal client's burning desire that they want solved right now, meets what do you love to do and talk about the most. And so most people they're talking to somebody that is not their ideal client. They're also not selling things that their person that they really want to talk to is interested in. They're not making content or offers for that person. And that's why that person's not buying. So, I have channeled brand audits, and then I have 90-minute deep dives where we like just do the whole thing. And I map out the whole offer flow and, the ideal client and the kind of like marketing perspective that you kind of shift into, like where you're going to take your brand to bring new people in. So it's been really, really fun because I'm finally getting to do the thing that I love talking to entrepreneurs. I get so excited when you tell me the thing that you love to do, that you're good at. And then they just start showing me like, oh, this thing here, this thing. And I just see this, like this empire laid out, and get to kind of like help people do the thing that is their thing. And then, so you're building a business around what you actually love to do, what you're actually good at, what is your purpose. it's giving you the money. So now you don't have to go to work for somebody else to do 8 hours of bullshit that's not your purpose. And this is how we're making that change in the planet, is like everybody's getting paid to do what they're meant to fucking do anyways. And that thing is the thing that you want to do. It's the thing that makes you the happiest. And it's like this level of permission, organization, and intention of hitting the market with exactly the thing that is speaking to the exact dream person with the exact thing that you want to talk about all day long.
That sounds so well tuned to the things that I've heard you talk so passionately about before. So I'm really excited.
Thank you.
Where can people go to find this new offer, or where should they be looking to see when these offers drop?
So I'm in the process of rebranding and updating my website. So that'll be coming roxytalks.com very soon. Also, Instagram is a great place to kind of see what's up to the minute. And then always you can reach out to me on Instagram. You can DM me and kind of talk to me about your brand or your situation, like where you're at. So I help people figure out their purpose. I help people. A lot of the people that I talk to, like I said, they're business owners already and they're doing things, they're selling things, and it does work. It's not like it can't work, because you can sell anything and make money at it. But it's like you're blocking the floodgates. You're blocking that divine abundance because you're not doing the thing that is the key to unlocking it. You know what I'm saying? So Instagram stories, and then my website, roxytalks.com, will have this stuff on it very shortly, depending on when this airs.
I believe you when you say that you can sell anything, because I keep seeing these TikTok videos about this woman who sells her spit to men. Like,
not me. I'm like, I would never buy nobody's spit.
From what she shares, she makes a lot of money selling her own
girl,
spit.
Get your fucking bag. Listen, like, I am all for the entrepreneurial spirit. If somebody wants to buy her spit, then who is she to deny them of that? It's none of my business. But there's that lady that sells poop. You know, she sells like the like calcified deer poop.
I was like,
stuff,
wait a second. Yeah,
not her own poop.
Thank you for.
She sells like droppings.
I was worried for a moment.
But I'm sure, I'm 100% sure that
there's someone.
Yes. Oh yeah. Lots of someones who are buying that stuff. And again, that's none of my business. I'm no judges, different strokes for different folks. I just I'm here to help you, optimize it and make sure, if your purpose, I don't know that that's their purpose in life. I don't know that. I can't say that for sure.
We listen and we don't judge.
Yes. We do not judge. We just help you find the thing. Like, I just want to help you land on the thing that is like your thing. And if it's poop, that's none of my business. If poop is your business, that's none of my business. I'm not here to judge you. I will help you figure out how to market it.
I mean, I have to say, this is a direction I did not expect this to go. So I'm pleasantly pleased with just getting a little poop in there. Pleasantly pleased for the poop. Yeah. Did not mean for that to happen, but I appreciate it. Okay. Well, so I think that's a great time to kind of lead into like our embodiment exercise for the week. So, Roxy, usually we do an embodiment exercise that we give everybody to sort of try something at home to tune into their body using whatever we've been discussing. So today we've been discussing your music and the mountain. And so this is what I came up with. And then I'd like you to add anything if you'd like to. So to participate in this exercise, I'd like you to close your eyes and listen to the mountain. You can find it on YouTube, and I'll also link to the description of this podcast. I want you to witness what comes up for you. Do you feel any emotions? Do you feel like moving your body as you listen to it? Are you reminded of any memories? Document this experience, whether you do it written or if you have like an audio journal, do it there. And then I want you to listen to it again. Only this time I want you to watch the music video and witness any shifts or changes that you notice come up for you as you engage with the imagery. Does anything make you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel attracted to certain themes or aesthetics in the video? Journal on what differences you noticed. Finally, now that you're connected to your body, I want you to ask yourself, do you believe in yourself in the way that we discussed earlier in this episode? Are you believing the cues from your body? Did you learn anything by listening to the mountain and then watching it about yourself? Would you add anything to that, Roxy?
That was fun. What's interesting is like the only thing I'm hearing in my head is just the word surrender. So the message of the mountain is like, I'm doing all of these things to try to get and to try to become and to try to be the best and whatever. But in reality, all I have to do is just be. I have to be me. I already am the success. I already am the accomplishment. I already am the love. Whatever it is that you're looking for, you already are it. And it is, that acceptance and settling into it and surrendering to the fact that nothing needs to be done. No changes need to be made. You already are that person. You just have to kind of allow yourself to be it.
I would say that's probably what I would say my biggest takeaway is from our conversation, is that each time we've sort of approached these ideas and like how they can be a tool for expansion, one of the things that just keeps reoccurring in the conversation is allowing. And I really appreciate that, because I think that's such an important thing that is so easy to forget as we're trying to do or be.
Permission is like what my job is. Just letting people do the thing. And it's like most of the time I'm not telling people stuff they don't know. I'm just telling them the stuff that they haven't been letting themselves latch onto.
Yeah. Well, now we can latch onto it like a little piglet latching onto the teat of its mama pig. I don't know. I don't know why I saw it.
And now we're talking teats. Oh my God. Yes.
So I guess with all of that, I'll just say thank you all for listening today. Please follow, subscribe. Please follow.
Subscribe.
Follow, subscribe, rate, like, review, share. And if you're listening,
rate high.
Rate it really high. Get high and rate, whatever works for you.
Get high and rate. Get high and rate high.
And if you're listening on Spotify, we invite you to interact with our polls or questions. And Roxy, again, they can follow you on Instagram at Roxy Talks.
Yeah, we got Instagram, Roxy Talks, Facebook, same thing. The Roxy Talks podcast, there's tons of episodes there as well. If you're already, after you listen to all of this podcast, every single episode of this podcast, then if you run out, then you could, I guess, go listen to the Roxy Talks podcast. And YouTube channel is going to have more content for entrepreneurs coming soon. I think if the fucking wind changes, then who knows? Don't hold me to it. I'm letting myself be as free as possible. But yeah, RoxyTalks.com. Instagram's always there. Spotify, iTunes. You can find the affirmations and the music and all those things there as well.
Thank you so much for your time and energy today, Roxy. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thanks, Jinx. Appreciate you having me.
Until next time, keep creating your favorite and most expanded version of yourself and rebel on.